Hang on to beat the Chicago Cubs yesterday at Wrigley Field. 8-7 home runs from Isaac Collins, a 3-run shot. Caleb Durbin added a 2-run drive, as well as Rhys Hoskins with the solo shot drove the Brewers offense. Starting pitcher Freddie Peralta would get the win. He would go 5 innings, giving up 2 home runs while striking out 6. And Trevor McGill would work the 9th. After some questionable calls by the ump, he would get the save. Manager Pat Murphy was emotional after win, saying it was a good one for him and his team.
The guys, they battled and got out to a good lead. Swing the bat's great today with authority. A lot of hard contacts and great opportunity for our young guys to then face the great Cubs team coming back and breathing down our necks right to the very end. And, so it gets pretty emotional.
The Brewers now sit 5.5 games back from the Cubs for first place in the NL Central. Crew sits 40-35 on the year. They'll go to Minnesota tonight to take on the Twins, as Jacob Mizorowski will take the mound for his second start. First pitch tonight is at 7:10.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Farmers deal with a lot, including long days, stress, and fatigue. This is your reminder to take breaks, stretch, have a snack, and hydrate your body. Avoid farm accidents by keeping yourself healthy. Visit ruralmutual.com to learn how Rural Mutual supports Wisconsin farmers and prioritize safety on the farm.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, training camp is right around the corner for the Green Bay Packers. It will be July 23rd. They also have 13 practices that will be open to the public. The team will take July 26th off before they practice 4 of 5 days at Rayniski Field, the final week of July prior to Packers Family Night, which will be August 2nd at 7:30. July 25th will also see the last day of Mark Murphy before Ed Policy takes over, and the Packers' first preseason game is August 9th at Lambeau Field against the Jets. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
Erratic. Is there a strategy?
Was he? You said it. I did not say that.
Correct. I said it. Is there anything you can do about that?
It's a waste of time, in my opinion, for managers to address umpires on balls and strikes. It's a waste of time. I think they're all pretty conscientious. I think most of them really care about getting it right. They battled. They got out to a good lead. Swing the bat's great today. A lot of hard contacts. Great opportunity for our young guys to then face the great Cubs team breathing down our necks right to the very end. So it gets pretty emotional.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Pat Murphy from yesterday's game, or after yesterday's game. The way the show went yesterday, we didn't have a time to get to that, really, because the Brewer game wrapped up, 20 minutes into the show. I didn't have time to go back and cut the post-game audio, and I'd play it off of Twitter, or I'd pull it up on my computer. But again, I will complain that the FanDuel channel doesn't post Pat Murphy's post-game avails. So a little bit of audio from Pat Murphy, just to kind of continue to enjoy yesterday's game. A little bit of audio from Trevor McGill as well. That's where I want to begin tonight. But we certainly don't need to spend the full 2 hours on the Brewers. But that's where I want to start, because I have some thoughts on the Brewers. Also a Packers discussion that I want to have. Some Wisconsin Badgers news. I guess I thought this lawsuit with Miami, I thought this was already in motion, but it was reported today by Ross Dellinger of Yahoo that it's going through. It's game on, which, again, I thought this already happened. But I think part of it was contingent on the House settlement related to revenue sharing that didn't pass until a week or two ago. I think one of the first couple of days in June 5th or 6th, that became official. So maybe that was a domino that needed to fall for this legal domino to fall. So I want to get to that. And a nice Friday surprise, or not a surprise, but a little change of pace. Jesse Temple's going to be here today. Normally he joins us on Wednesdays. And I think this week it worked out a little bit better. He had you don't care, but maybe you do care. Jesse had a dental, he had like a minor dental thing done on Wednesday. And he realized that because they numbed him in like 3 parts, he couldn't talk. So he's like, hey, can we reschedule the later in the week? So I'm actually capable of moving my lips and speaking coherently. So Jesse's going to be here in the second hour at about 5:30. And we'll talk about this lawsuit. I feel a little bad for both Jesse and Zach because I think they're beyond done talking about the Xavier Lucas situation. We're not going to dwell on it. A couple other things I want to ask him about as it relates to the Badgers and his coverage at Badger Connect. But we do want to start with the news of the day. We'll get to that in hour number 2. A fun Aaron Rodgers story that we can pick at tonight as well related to his marriage. And some of you might be, why are we talking about Rodgers? Who cares? It's entertaining. It's juicy. Now, if the Packers had played yesterday and we had a game to talk about, probably wouldn't be talking about Rodgers' marriage. But it's interesting, and it's the summer, and it's Friday, and we can have some fun with that, maybe in hour number 2 as well. This is the Wisco Sports Show. No phone calls tonight. Apologies, although I did warn you last night and said, hey, if you have anything to say this week, it's got to happen today, because we'll be at Bill's studio tomorrow. I'm here in the Point Brewing Studios, or at least that's the sign behind me, and you can see that on the live stream, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, at Wisco Grant, and I'll be very vigilant. Yeah, that's the word. I'll be very vigilant. Checking your comments on the live stream and your texts at 608-321-1670 in lieu of phone calls tonight. I want to begin with a little further reaction to yesterday's Brewers Cubs game that was high drama in the 8th with a bunch of runners on, Uribe trying to hold a lead, and then a runner on and a high stakes double play turned in the bottom of the 9th. Trevor McGill got out of it with Pete Crow Armstrong looming in the on deck circle too. High drama and a really good baseball game. Had a little umpiring drama. It had offense. It had defense. It had pitch. It had everything. And it was an electric environment at Wrigley Field. And I just got to say to begin the show, because I don't think I did service to this idea last night, and I wish I would have. I really enjoy the Brewers-Cubs rivalry. And I don't know if it's been bettered or worsened in recent years because Major League Baseball has gone to the balanced scheduling. So everybody plays everybody. You don't have as many games against your division rivals. You still play your division rivals more than you play anyone else. But the Brewers never used to go 2 full months without playing the Reds, right? It was never the case in the past where the Brewers would go a full month and a half without playing the Cubs. So I think this balanced scheduling, there are some drawbacks and there are some advantages. I think one of the drawbacks is in May or June, when baseball has to really only compete with the NBA playoffs and hockey, like baseball should be carving out a niche, especially regionally, right? And I think it's hard sometimes for fans to really buy in when the Brewers are playing ho-hum and their schedule is Twins, Guardians, Mariners. Like, I'm looking at the schedule for the months, like, this is all American League teams, which it's cool to be able to see some of those players and some of those teams that play in the other league. But if I want to watch highlights of, whoever, if I want to watch Bobby Witt Jr. highlights, I can just go watch them. They aren't buried somewhere like 20 years ago or 30 years ago when the only time you ever saw other teams is when they played your team, right? Like, that's not an issue anymore. So I think the balanced scheduling can lose fans a little bit in May when the Brewers are playing 500 ball and you look at the upcoming schedule. It's like, okay, so no Cardinals, no Cubs, no Reds or Pirates, which maybe don't feel like charged rivalries, but they're important divisional games that are going to matter more to the Brewers' outlook in the NL Central and ultimately in the wild card if they're battling with one of those teams. They could be. We don't know that yet. So I think the balanced scheduling has some drawbacks, and I've talked about that. I also think that the balanced scheduling provides something that you really only get in the NFL, and that's scarcity. I think part of the reason we love the NFL, on top of football being our favorite sport and the American sport, it's just the best. Part of why the NFL is so great is the schedule. You play 1 game a week, which means that game means way more than a baseball game. They're mostly played every day, or an NBA regular season game when you play 82 of them and they're on every couple of nights. And it's like, okay, I don't need to catch this one. I'll watch a little bit on Sunday, or I'll circle back and watch the Bucks on Thursday night because tonight I'm busy doing this, that, or the other thing. You don't have that option during football season. We schedule our weddings and our weekend events around when the Packers play, So there's real scarcity there. I need to watch this game this week because there won't be another one until next Sunday. I need to watch Packers-Vikings because it's a huge divisional game and they don't play again for another 2 months. And this matchup, this game is going to go a long way into deciding the division, who gets into the playoffs and with what seed, right? Well, now in baseball, the Brewers only play the Cubs, however many times. And I don't know exactly when. I don't know that they play in the month of July. They might not play again until early August. I'm not 100% sure, but they don't play as much as they used to. And while I think there are real drawbacks with this balanced schedule, I think there are some benefits. And I think one of those benefits might be these rivalry games within the division mean more, and they're supercharged because there's just not as many of them. And I think the NFL has a little bit of that. Part of it's the nature of the sport. You can't play a football game every day. People would break down and the players would make it through a season. So part of it is just structural to the sport. Part of it is the scheduling. Once a week, it's just perfect. And I think scarcity between the Brewers and the Cubs, or the Brewers and the Cardinals especially, I think they're 2 traditional rivals, like that charges things up. I think that atmosphere at Wrigley is a little bit more charged up And later this season, when they play again, I think it'll be a little bit more charged up. I'd like to think the Brewers Cubs in early May was pretty charged up, but it was early and we knew there were more games. And for the most part, especially the first 2 games of that series, weren't even all that close. So I think some fans got lost in there. I think Brewers Cubs is very underrated among rivalries, not just in our Wisconsin sports sphere, but in sports in general. Like we talk about NFL, NBA, and then Major League Baseball, and you try to think of some of the best rivalries. There's some in baseball, like Yankees, Red Sox, always going to be nationally televised. And even if the games are great, I think a lot of the country is just like, oh, Yankees, Red Sox being forced down our throat again, even if the games are great. I think Dodgers, Padres is a great rivalry in baseball. And I think in football, obviously Packers, Vikings, Packers, Bears. At times, Seahawks, Niners was incredible. We'll see if the Rams and the Niners, see if there's another team that plays at a high level in the West. Typically, the last few years, it's been one, and that's about it. There have been years where 3 or 4 teams in the NFC West have all been incredible. AFC North games like the Steelers and the Ravens or Steelers, Bengals, those games are great. I think Brewers, Cubs is just about as good as you can get in baseball. And I think that matchup, that rivalry is underrated in the grand scheme of sports. And I've said this all the way back to 2018, 2019, when I first started doing the show. And back in 2018, of course, the Brewers and the Cubs were both good. That's before the Cubs had kind of started their rebuild. And the Cubs were never awful in the years to come, but now they have risen back up with this new run of young players, PCA and Matt Shaw and Imanaga and Suzuki. Like they've kind of found their form again, especially offensively this year. And they probably should have won some more games than they did last year. Last year was just kind of a weird year for them. That's baseball, as counsel would say. But I've been saying this going all the way back to 2018, 2019, again, when both of these teams were good. I just think these two teams bring the absolute best out of each other. And in some ways, the absolute worst, right? The emotions and the vitriol and the hate. I do think it's a respectful rivalry among the teams. And I think among some fans, it's a respectful rivalry. I think it should be more of a respectful rivalry. I know the Cubs brand is bigger and that fan base probably feels like they're on a higher plane than the Brewers. And the World Series in 2016 certainly gives them right to feel that way. But I think mostly these two teams in their histories have been crappy. The Cubs have been the lovable losers. As I've often joked, the Brewers have just been losers. And the 2016 World Series certainly divides them. But I'll try to extend a little olive branch here between Brewers and Cubs fans. These games are fun. And I know Cubs fans take a lot of pride in coming up to American Family Field and taking it over, Wrigley North. I also think on a smaller scale, but then again, Milwaukee is a smaller city. Brewers fans seem to travel really well down to Wrigley too, and you could hear it yesterday. They certainly didn't take over the ballpark, but when Rhys Hoskins hits that homer, Isaac Collins hit that 3-run bomb out to left, like you can hear the Brewers fans there. It's a good rivalry. It's a good back and forth. The ballparks always have a ton of energy. And even if the Cubs are playing poorly and the Brewers are hot or vice versa, I think both of these teams find sea level more often than not when they play each other. The first series this year, a little bit of an exception, but I think the Brewers were figuring some things out. I think the Cubs last year also were figuring some things out. But on balance, these two teams typically bring the best out of each other. The fan bases, whether it's at American Family or at Wrigley, are charged up. I think both ballparks are great. Again, I'll be a mediary between these two fan bases. Again, I think Cubs fans love to talk about how American Family Field is a dump, and Brewers fans love to talk about how Wrigley Field is a dump. I like both parks. And also, if you think American Family Field is such a dump, then don't drive up here and go to games. And Brewers fans, much of the same. I've often talked about different major league ballparks. We get so protective and we get so opinionated about our home park versus others. I think part of the appeal of baseball that doesn't really exist in basketball or in football is that all the parks are different and you can get a completely and totally different experience at American Family Field versus the one you can get at Wrigley versus the one that some Brewers fans, especially in the northwest corner of the state, maybe our WAYY listeners up in Eau Claire, very different experience that you're going to get at Target Field in Minneapolis. I think that's part of the fun. So Brewers fans, Cubs fans, I like Wrigley. I like American Family Field. I think the attendance trends would tell you a lot of Cubs fans like coming up to American Family Field for one reason or another. Maybe they just come up here because, screw the Brewers and we want to stick it up their rear end by coming to their ballpark. Okay, but if you really hated the ballpark and thought it was a dump, you wouldn't come up here. I think for lots of reasons, Scarcity in the schedule now being one that's a little bit of a newer wrinkle that's been added the last couple of years. But even going all the way back to 2017, 2018, these two teams bring the best out of each other, and you could feel how much that game meant yesterday. This is a rivalry that I really like. Very easy for me to say the day after my team just won one of those big rivalry games. You know what I mean? Like, would this be the lead of the show today? Had the Brewers lost yesterday? Impossible to say. Who's to say? I suppose I'd be the one to say. If I was being honest, I'd probably say no. But I think this rivalry is really, really underrated. And I'm certainly not going to put it up there with like Yankees, Red Sox, but I think it's in some way similar to Dodgers, Padres. And then if you want to extend to, football rivalries, Packers, Bears, or, two powers in the NFC West when Harbaugh and Pete Carroll were going at it, I think Shanahan and McVay, although those two teams have been a little bit of a roller coaster with lots of peaks and valleys, when they have met, when both teams are good, that's been really good. The AFC North has a lot of kind of black and blue rivalries. All of them play outside, which helps. I don't think there are any rivalries in basketball. Like, you could say Steph, LeBron, but that's kind of independent of team or fan base. I think Brewers Cubs, although it's Midwestern, and the Brewers certainly aren't a brand with a lot of rich history of winning in championships. Then again, the Cubs aren't either. They have one in 2016, and Brewers fans, you got to kiss that ring. But the Cubs have been, again, for their history, lovable losers. The Brewers have just been losers. I think it's a really underrated and underappreciated rivalry. And I know Cubs fans, Brewers fans, we don't like each other, but I think there's a tip of the cap that should be extended both ways to the ballparks and the fan bases and to the teams. So maybe I'll try to be an intermediary a little bit, because the baseball's great. And anytime you can get me my heart pounding in the ninth inning of a baseball game in mid-June, like, I'm going to take it. Now, of course, screw Craig Counsell, that worm. I'm not including him in any of this. I will extend nothing to him. But everyone else involved, the players and the fans, this is a pretty good rivalry. So why don't we shake our appendages? We can stop this pissing contest. Split a 2-game series, and I thought that's good baseball. And as I said it yesterday, I'll continue to say this for as long as I'm on the air. I think when baseball is at its best, I think it's better than any other sport. It's rare, certainly in a 162-game season, where you get that type of baseball. But I think Brewers fans, we've been lucky in the last week. I think we got it on Sunday and last Saturday too, Brewers Cardinals. I think we certainly got it between the Brewers and the Cubs. It's been a really fun week of baseball. And I think there's not a tip of the cap, because Brewers and Cubs fans, we don't like each other. But I think we should both realize, like, damn, this is pretty good baseball. It's pretty good entertainment when Wrigley's charged up, when American Family Field is charged up, and these two teams are trading blows. The product is pretty good, and I enjoy it. I'll take your texts on the other side. If you have any thoughts on this, we'll hear a little bit from Pat Murphy and a little bit from Trevor McGill as we continue to react to yesterday. And then as the show continues, I got a couple Packers topics. We got some breaking Badgers news today as well. Jesse Temple will join us at 5:35. Badger Connect, and you hear him on the camp with Zach as well. So a lot of the Wisco Sports Show. We're going to get into a lot of different things between now and 6 o'clock. Stick around.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. Fins up, by the way. It's Friday. Appreciate you listening. No phone calls tonight. I apologize genuinely. But you can text the show. Same number as always, 608-321-1670. And you can comment on the live stream, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We're broadcasting live here at the Bill Michaels Studios, prestigious location. You can see that on the live stream, the Point Brewing neon behind me. I still can't believe this Point Brewing sign got as much run as it did in the Netflix documentary. What a coup for Point Brewing. Started the show by discussing a little bit more Brewers Cubs from yesterday. I just think it's a great rivalry, and I think it's underrated as far as current sports rivalries go. And it's been, with peaks and valleys, of course, pretty darn good, dating all the way back to 2017, 2018, when the Brewers started to figure it out. And then there were some years where the Cubs dropped down, and now the Cubs have figured it out again. And the Brewers mostly have maintained these games are charged up, and they're really, really good. And I think this rivalry is up there with some of the better ones we talk about in, football. And I just don't know that the NBA has rivalries in the same way that the other sports leagues do. And Rick comments on the live stream, says, football is king. Well, yeah, football is king for lots of different reasons. It's just our favorite sport in this country. I think the scheduling, again, and I said this in the opening segment, they only play one game a week. You have to watch. You don't have a choice. Like, if I miss the Brewer game tonight, I can watch tomorrow. I can watch Sunday. There's 162 of the things. And football, there's 17. And if I miss one Packers-Vikings game, there's only one left. Those big-time division games. And I think part of the balanced schedule now in Major League Baseball, lots of drawbacks, because honestly, I just don't give a rip about some of these matchups with American League teams. But then they only play the Cubs a couple of times, and they might go 2 months without seeing the Cubs or the Cardinals or the Reds or the Pirates, which means when those division rivals come up, I need to watch. And I think that's probably added a little extra charge to this Brewers-Cubs rivalry that, again, was really, really good yesterday. Rick from Spencer texts in, 608-321-1670. Says, so do the St. Paul Saints still have the pig? I used to go to their games. I saw Jack Boris pitch a couple of times. Warm summer night, cheap cold beer and baseball. It doesn't get much better. Saints games are great. I don't know what you're referring to with the pig. I have a couple friends that live in the cities. Maybe I can text them about it over the break. I got a text from Coyote Mike with a screenshot of the upcoming schedule. It says, Grant, Cubs got Brewers. Need to go at least 6-3 in the next 9 games, preferably 7-2. As it looks now, July is going to be a tough month. So remaining now in the month of June, you have 3 in Minneapolis this weekend, 3 at home against Pittsburgh, an off day, and then 3 at home against Colorado. You're right, Coyote Mike. And we talked about this on Bill's show earlier today. 7-2 would be excellent. I might even hope for a little bit better than that, riding the momentum from yesterday, and you had an off day, a rain delay day on Wednesday, which hopefully buys a little extra rest. You should be able to go into Minnesota and then come home and ideally 2 of 3 from Pittsburgh, 2 of 3 from Colorado. If you can find a sweep in either of those series at home, that would be even better. But the month of July, we'll see the Mets, we'll see the Dodgers, We'll see the Dodgers again right after the All-Star break, and then the Cubs at home for 3 games right before the end of the month. So they do play the Cubs next month, but it's at the end of next month again. Yesterday, the umpiring becoming a little bit of a factor, and I do want to play you this exchange actually with Trevor McGill, because Murph referenced the umpiring, or it was referenced. J.R. Radcliffe asked him about the erratic strike zone, and Murph, you heard in the intro, basically said, hey, you said it, not me. Because I doubt he wants to get fined. He might get fined for things that he was yelling out of the dugout. It looked pretty aggressive, let's say, towards, Adam Beck, the home plate umpire. It was funny. C.D. Buckner was on this umpiring crew, never once called a game behind home plate, which is my biggest fear, and it was some of these other yahoos that messed up some big calls and big moments. It's funny, the umpire scorecard came out for Adam Beck today, and he hit like 93% of the calls. The funny thing is on the umpire scorecard, if you ever go and check out that account on Twitter, it's very good. They'll give you the ball and strike grid, the biggest misses, both in and out of the zone, accuracy percentages, those sorts of things. But then it'll give you like the 3 most consequential missed calls. And in yesterday's game, 93% accuracy rate be damned. It was like full count, bottom of the 9th, ball 4 was a strike and it was missed. And then the next biggest call was 8th inning, bases loaded, right? Like high stakes, high value calls. So yeah, the percentage can be really damning for an umpire if they're down in the upper 80s. But also, you can call a pretty good game, but if you miss the 4 most important close pitches of the game, like I don't really care your percentage for the rest of the game. I don't care if you really nailed it in the 2nd inning. I don't care. And in the case, I think it's Adam Beck yesterday. The 2 of the 3 most consequential calls listed on the ump scorecard is 1 in the bottom of the 9th, 1 in the bottom of the 8th. And when the Brewers were clinging to a 1-run lead, pretty important calls that you got to get right. Luckily, the ball did not lie. Suzuki grounds into the double play, so we're not talking about a game that was directly impacted by the umpiring, but it was part of the story, which I contend sometimes is entertaining. I sometimes think that's for the best. Here's a little bit of Trevor McGill. It's about 2 minutes. We might pause it and react to some of these questions and answers, but he actually speaks a little bit more openly about the umpiring, where Murph, like I said, tended to avoid it a little bit more yesterday.
Trevor, can you kind of take me through what was going through your head as you tried to stay composed in that last inning?
Yeah, I mean, you're just trying to keep the emotions even, and obviously we can't show up an umpire, but he made some pretty bad calls there in Abner's inning and in my inning. Yeah, I mean, that's baseball, I guess. I mean, they're gonna have bad days back there too, and bad innings. But yeah, we just try to stay, mentally strong and go out there and probably put the ball in play against his ball.
The pitch to Suzuki right after you probably felt like you had him. Did it feel like that's kind of a ball don't lie?
I mean, the report's already out. There's a lot of calls that were missed, but we just got to be mentally stronger than that and just overcome the obstacle. Right? So it is what it is. Team still won, and yeah, going out to Minnesota.
Trevor, how do you want to navigate the top of their lineup? What's the best lineup you guys have seen?
So, by the way, if you can't hear it clearly, Sophia Menert there asking about how you navigate the top of the lineup. This was, and we'll get back to McGill here in a sec. I remember this being a talking point about the Cardinals like 3 years ago, 2 years ago. I'm not exactly sure, when they had Arenado and Goldschmidt at the peak of their powers. A fun element that you'll get in baseball that, again, you won't necessarily get in other sports is looking at how the lineup's going to shake out, especially in later innings. Who's due to come up to the plate? Who are you going to have to retire to get to that 27th out to win a game? And I remember the Cardinals, when Goldschmidt and Arenado were at the peak of their powers, it's like, how do you clear that? How do you get past that part of the lineup? It's a huge part of how you use certain pitchers, how aggressively you pitch to certain guys versus others. The middle of this Cubs order right now, 2, 3, 4, is Kyle Tucker, Seiya Suzuki, and Pete Crow-Armstrong. That's about as good as you can currently do. Hap's been hitting leadoff, and Hap hasn't had a great year, but I think he had a home run today. He had a hit yesterday on top of a walk. Like he's been better. He's no slouch at the top of the order, not to mention he always plays really well against the Brewers. And then Dansby Swanson, who's their 5-hitter, is kind of your quintessential 5-hitter, the same way that like Rhys Hoskins would be a 5-hitter. Like, it could be really bad, could be really good, but if you get it on a good day, be a huge part of your offense. He had 2 hits yesterday. Interestingly enough, one of them a home run, a pretty consequential play. So getting through that part of the lineup, Tucker, Suzuki, PCA, and then Hap and Swanson on the front and the back end, that's no slouch. Like that's a special lineup where you have to make accommodations and decisions, and you have to make strategic choices as a manager with your pitcher usage on how to get through that part. So that's what Sophia's asking about. And if I remember, because I listened to this earlier, Trevor McGill gives kind of a stock answer on this, but it's still interesting to hear him talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, they're up there with the Philadelphia and the Yankees for sure. I mean, their offense definitely knows how to bang. Just attack the guys like I attacked them. I thought I threw very well, threw good strikes. Some were called, like I mentioned, but that's baseball. It just is what it is. So just attacking the what I have.
What was the thinking and the execution on the pitch that you got Suzuki with on the double play right after you probably thought you got him struck out?
I mean, we had heater away, and I don't know where I put it, but probably middle or even in, honestly. But he topped it, and I'm happy. So we're trying to strike him out there, and we fell behind a little bit and just had to go, put a ball in a good spot.
Blessing of being a modern reliever. We're trying to strike him out, but gone are the days where relievers are throwing 95. Like most of these guys can touch close to 100 if you're a high energy, high effort reliever. We talked about this on Bill's show, and it was a good point that Austin made. Smart people in baseball have done wonders for pitchers. I don't know that smart people in baseball have yet to do the same for hitters, which is why averages just continue to trend down. But what a luxury that exists for a pitcher like McGill in 2025 that wouldn't have existed 10 years ago. Well, we were trying to strike him out. We wanted fastball away. I don't know where it ended up, but he topped it because it was 100. What a luxury.
Not just the emotions of, the calls in the ninth inning, but the crowd here was really into it. What did you think of just the atmosphere, and how did you manage the energy?
I mean, it's Wrigley. If you haven't played here before, if you have played here before, that's to be expected. It's always different coming out of the bullpen too. It's a little dungeon down there, and there's no noise or anything. So I kind of just take my time getting checked by the umpire just to kind of soak up the atmosphere and just kind of feel it out. So Wrigley always provides the energy, especially with these Brewers Cubs games.
So McGill certainly pitched there before. He's pitched around the division, and he was a member of the Cubs at one point in time too, so he gets it. But I'd prefer that, Brewers fans. We can complain about Cubs fans, and Lord knows they complain about us. Brad and Bloomer with a funny text a couple minutes ago says, the true Cubs fans are fine, but it's all the people who think it's cool to be a Cubs fan. The ones who don't actually know anything about baseball, those are the ones I simply can't stand, especially when they show up at American Family Field. Thank you for the text, Brad. Thank you for listening up in Bloomer. You would be one of those great candidates to head over to Target Field this weekend, Brad. Maybe you'll make your way. I know a lot of folks from northwestern Wisconsin do. There's typically a huge Brewers contingent at Target Field for that series, just because there's a lot of Brewers fans in northwestern Wisconsin. It's a lot closer to drive to the Twin Cities. Easier to get to the Twin Cities to see a game. You don't even have to stay overnight necessarily if you don't want to. Easier than going to Milwaukee. I think you could say that about just about any fan base, Brad. The true fan. What is a true fan? I think I watch as much of the Brewers and follow them as closely as anyone. And I feel like mostly pretty miserable about this team. Like, you could talk to someone who, Brad, you might not consider a true Brewers fan, and they're having a ball following the team, cheering on their favorite players, where maybe some of us who are in the weeds more, like, we're just miserable constantly. I think part of that's the sport of baseball. I will say, to your point, Brad, I will agree with you a little bit that since the Cubs have been so great this year, I've learned that a lot of people that I follow on Twitter are Cubs fans. Who knew? Never would have known. Never seen you tweet anything or post anything about it before. And again, it's true of most teams. But I think with the Cubs, because of that branding, and there's a lot of people all over the country who are Cubs fans, even though they don't live in and around Chicago, because, well, that's where my dad is from, or my uncle took me to Wrigley one time, stuff like that. Darnell with a comment on the live stream. Darnell, I could put you in touch with a publishing company, seemingly because you are so intent on writing a book, but I'll read this the best I can. Something about baseball is just different. You could be cruising along as a player and then go 0-4 in 3 straight games and then feel like the worst player on earth. The highs and lows are abrupt. You're also never out of a game. In other sports, with a timer, it's sometimes just over. In baseball, you can win right down to your final strike. That is excellent. Darnell, sorry, not all the words could fit on the screen. Appreciate you. It looks like you're watching on the live stream on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, at Wisco Grant. You will see the handsome face and the well-groomed hair of Jesse Temple coming up in about an hour. We'll talk about the news of the day, and that is Wisconsin has filed suit against Miami for poaching Xavier Lucas when he was under contract, or so we are told. I don't know what is alleged and what isn't. Ross Dellinger with the latest at Yahoo. We'll get into that in hour number 2 and connect with Jesse Temple. But when we come back, I want to talk a little Packers because I must admit I am slightly confused. with how they're building this O-line and how they're investing in certain positions along the O-line. So we'll get into that next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Here are your two wheels revved up because here it comes. The Big River Rally where the river meets the road. It rolls into La Crosse on June 27th and 28th. Join us for a weekend packed with action. Stunt shows, a killer bike show, food trucks, all kinds of awesome vendors. Friday, Rod's River Run with Texas Hippie Coalition lighting up the stage that night. Then Saturday is the Big River Rally Ride. Miles and miles of pure freedom. Then Saturday night, Drowning Pool rocks the house. Grab your tickets right now. BigRiverRally.com. That's BigRiverRally.com, and I'll see you there.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. Fins up. It's Friday. Hope your week is wrapping up nicely. I have a pretty good weekend on deck myself. Summerfest tomorrow night. Billy Currington on a free stage. Yep, I think I will. I think I'll attend that. I think I'll drink unlimited Lineys tomorrow. I don't care how hot it is. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully you have a great weekend ahead of you as well. We talked a little Brewers Cubs. We might circle back to that in hour number 2. We'll see where the show goes. I do know that Jesse Temple, Badger Connect, going to be here at the bottom of next hour, 5:35. And little Badgers news today. Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports reporting that Wisconsin is now filing suit against Miami over the Xavier Lucas situation, which I thought that hay was already in the barn, but it turns out that the hay was baled and it was ready to go into the barn, but it had not been loaded into the hay mound yet. And part of that was probably the House settlement related to revenue sharing, which only passed a couple weeks ago. So now they're moving forward. The Big Ten is throwing their heft behind it as well. Certainly stands to be a precedent-setting landmark case, all of those legal hot words for years to come. I want to talk Packers for a couple of minutes. Nothing related with Jair. Let's get out of that related to Jair. I want to talk about the way they're constructing this offensive line. Okay. And before I make my point, I want to kind of give you the latest on a couple of different spots along the O-line. Let's remember where we are, right? The Packers gave a mountain of money to Aaron Banks. That's your left tackle. They have asked their franchise left tackle to move to center. He now wants money. So it stands to reason that if the Packers placate him, and I think they will, he will probably make top of the market money at center. Even if it's not for the next 5 years, even if they only extend him for 2 years, and even if it's not crushing, they will have a top of the market left guard. They will have a top of the market center. Now, what they do at right guard will probably be some mix of Sean Ryan or at this point, Jordan Morgan. We'll see. Right tackle, Zach Tom. Now, I think Zach Tom is the easiest call on the entire roster of young players who are coming up on deals. I think Zach Tom is the easiest one. I think they should do it. I will give you straight from the horse's mouth, straight from the Gutekunst's mouth. He was on with Corey Benke and Aaron Nagler, our friend who was on at the Super Bowl. Wasn't he great? Still appreciative of him for doing that because I think he was there with a rival station. I think he was there with 97.3. And yet he came over and joined us on the show, which is very nice. Here's 50 seconds of Aaron Nagler, and I believe Corey Benke's in this video as well, Cheesehead TV. This is from Packers Transplants, asking Brian Gutekunst about Zach Tom. So listen to this.
Speaking of contracts, because that's all the shit we talk about in the offseason. Zach Tom, when's that going to get done? I mean, I made a whole stink about this earlier this summer, man. Like, you got Adam Stenovich out there talking about how he's going to have to compete for a right tackle job. Wait, at what point do you say this is a core
Agreed. Nagler's been barking up this tree like, yeah, we want everyone to compete, but at what point do you just reward a player? I agree. So I am 100% with Nagler on this. I think it's a good setup for the question. Here's Goody's answer, which will probably give us some inclination, but probably won't be very interesting.
Here, we're going to lock him up.
Yeah. First of all, we're always competing, right? No matter who you are,
yes,
what your contract
is,
all that. But I will say, no, we've had really healthy conversations with Zach about locking him up, and certainly that's something we'd like to do. Though these things take time, as you know, and they never happen very quickly. But confident, obviously, he's been a really good player for us since the time he got here, done everything right by us, and we'd certainly like to make that happen. So hopefully we'll get there soon.
So I love the setup. I love the premise by Aaron Nagler. And I brought this up, I don't know, a month or two ago, and I cited a little soundbite, a little clip from one of Aaron Nagler's. What does he do at 4:00? And this is not meant to be disrespectful. I just can't remember exactly what they're called. Like Packers Daily, he does the live chat at 4:00. And I have seen Rick on the live stream being like, hey, I'll be there in a bit. I'm listening to Nagler right now, which is kind of funny. It's like, well, I'm not listening to the show. I'm listening to somebody else, but I'll be there I'll tune in a bit. But I played you a clip from one of Nagler's Packers Daily chats a month or two ago where it's like, hey, competition is great. We want everyone competing for their job, but don't we think the Zach Tom situation should be pretty cut and dry? Like, is this one that we really want to drag out? Do we really want to make him compete for that job, even though he's probably earned it and then some? And do we really want to let this linger into training camp where he's holding in or something? Like, I just don't think any of that is necessary. Now, if Jaden Reed wants to do that song and dance, or Romeo Doubs wants to do that song and dance, I'm fine with it. And if the Packers want to wrestle contractually with guys like that, fine. Because I don't think Jaden Reed or Romeo Doubs have completely proven themselves yet. I don't think those are cut and dry. They might end up extending Romeo Doubs, but I don't think it's decided at this moment in time. I think Zach Tom at this moment, at this hour in late June, this seems like the easiest one of the bunch. And I love the question, and it seems as though the Packers are intent on extending him. And when they got rid of Jair and Goody talks to the media and says, yep, now we have a lot of space in case something comes up. And certainly you're going to see some money with guys that we have here. He all but implied pretty clearly that they're working on extensions for guys in-house. And Zach Tom should be top of that list. Okay, so to revisit so far, top of the market left guard, what stands to probably be a top of the market center, and what will be, if not top of the market, very close to top of the market at right tackle. Now, you're probably going to be playing someone on a rookie deal, whether it's Jordan Morgan at right tackle, right guard, or Sean Ryan, who's played there. Now, remember, your left tackle, Rasheed Walker, is still on a rookie deal. But I saw the other day, take this with a grain of salt if you want, but we have a show to do today. I'm going to react to this. I'm going to respond to this. Slick Rick on Twitter. This is an account that's got things right in the past. I don't know who it is. He's had scoops about the Vikings before and scoops about this, that, and the other thing. It's Ricky or Slick Rick Scoops on Twitter. He's got 40,000 followers. I'm not telling you what to believe or what not to believe, but he tweeted 2 days ago, and I bookmarked it, just hadn't come up yet, that the Packers are working on an extension for left tackle Rasheed Walker that they hope to have done before training camp. Now, let's just say for this segment that that's true. Let's just go along with me for a sec. I think there's a very solid chance that it might be true. I think there's a chance that it's not true, but it's sports talk radio. We're not under oath. We can have fun with this. Let's operate now under the assumption that the Packers are working to extend their franchise left tackle. They've already spent money on a left guard. They're probably going to spend more money on their center. And I think the easiest extension of the bunch is Zach Tom. That's 4 of the 5 spots that you will have newly extended or gave deals at the top of the market, either in free agency or in extensions. Now, none of those moves in a vacuum are bad. Rasheed Walker has been very good, and you could certainly do a lot worse at left tackle. If you want to proceed with him at left tackle, fine. I'm going to rip you for that. Zach Tom, certainly, I think that's the easiest one, again, of the bunch. You want to move Elton Jenkins to center? He's been very good. He's your veteran. He's not asking something that's ridiculous. You want to do that? All right, fine. Again, in a vacuum. In a vacuum, you want to sign a franchise left guard and lock up that spot and give yourself some more flexibility with other guys along the line. Pay for Aaron Banks, fine. All of those moves individually are fine and well. But none of those moves exist in a vacuum because all of those pieces are pieces along an offensive line in a unit. And I'm a little confused if we're going to pay left tackle, right tackle, left guard, center. I'm a little confused as to what the Jordan Morgan pick was. I'm a little confused by the Anthony Belton pick. Those are the types of picks that you make when you're not satisfied with your current starter, and you might not want to extend them. I mean, like, I thought the Jordan Morgan pick was, well, we like Rasheed Walker enough, but we don't like him that much to extend him, so we'll throw someone else in the hopper. Okay. That makes sense. That's fine. And then the Anthony Belton pick is like, okay, well, if you don't feel like your right guard of the future is on the team, or maybe we like Zach Tom a little bit, but we don't love him. So maybe we're looking for his replacement one day. So the Anthony Belton picks and the Jordan Morgan picks, like the signings or the extensions that they have made or will make, fine in a vacuum. But top of the market extension at both tackles, top of the market left guard, near top of the market at center. That's 4 of your 5 spots that this offseason you will have invested in. And you took an O-lineman in the first round last year, and you took an O-lineman in the second round this year. I understand you need good depth, but you can't pay that price for that depth. You can't say, well, we need good backups. Well, you got to find them somewhere else, somehow, some other way. Somehow you need to build up better depth. You can't spend premium picks in back-to-back years on the O-line when you're going to extend everyone who's already there. It's too much money. It's too much draft capital, especially when you ostensibly have needs elsewhere. The pass rush could have used another premium pick. The cornerback room could use another premium pick. And I know they spent money in the cornerback. I know they signed Hobbs, and I like that signing. And I know they drafted some day 3 guys on the pass rush. But if you're paying left tackle, right tackle, left guard, center, you just can't go back-to-back years in the first and second round at O-line. And I know some people will be like, well, Grant, it's the trenches. You got to protect Jordan Love. I know that. They've been fine at protecting Jordan Love. They've been, if not the best, one of the 2 or 3 best pass protection teams in recent years because they're the Packers and they're very good at it. And interestingly enough, they've been good at it without needing to invest first and second round picks on the O-line. So I think they should extend Zach Tom. I'd probably stop there. Because you've drafted Belton and Jordan Morgan, I don't think you can afford to extend Rasheed Walker. And I don't know about Elton Jenkins. I think that extension is not going to be backbreaking. I would do it. But you can't just stash Jordan Morgan for a second straight year. And you can't redshirt Anthony Belton with no clear path to play. And again, even if you sit Jordan Morgan and Anthony Belton this year, well, if you're extending Tom, Walker, you just paid Banks, you're going to extend Elton Jenkins. Well, it's not like a spot's going to open up next year. That's not okay. That's too much investment. That's too many resources tied up in an O-line that's already been pretty good. It's never going to be perfect. NFL teams should not chase perfect on the O-line. They need to achieve good enough, build depth cheaply the best way that they can, and then hope that your good guys play good in big moments, which has been an issue. And then I turned to coaching. Zach Tom played his worst game at the worst time last year. All right, when we come back, I want to have a little fun with the latest Aaron Rodgers story. Again, because it's fun, not because this is the most serious show in the world. It's not. It's sports talk. It's because it's fun. We'll wrap up hour number 1 with that next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. A couple minutes before we pause here at 5 o'clock. I want to have a little fun with this Aaron Rodgers story. Now I'm wondering if we should just hold off until after the update here at 5 o'clock. I think I will. Let's get to some texts in the meantime. Then we're not rushed. Because I truly want to be able to fully service this Aaron Rodgers story. I don't want to shortchange you with this high drama. Let's see here. Coyote Mike chiming in. Cubs lost today. Another double play to end their game. I was watching a little bit, and at one point I tried to get it on Bill's TV in here because I'm able to watch it on my phone, and I was trying to cast or screen mirror or whatever. I was trying to get it on the big screen so I could watch the end during the show. Couldn't figure it out, so I gave up, but good to know the Cubs lost. Eric on I-90 simply says, fins up to you, Eric. Uncle Packer says, hey, Grant, fins up. I'm having a great Friday, but you were so dead on with this O-line. I'm curious, too. I wonder if this could be a reaction from getting pushed around in the playoffs by Philly. Anyway, good stuff. Have a good weekend. Thank you, Uncle Packer. I think the Banks signing and the Belton pick would be reasonable responses to what happened against Philly. Green Bay has really prioritized O-line prospects in the last decade that have movement skills, that are lighter, more athletic, more versatile, and that served them very well. And if I was running the show in Green Bay, I certainly wouldn't want to deviate too far from what they've been doing because it's been working. That Eagles pass rush was 1 of 1 last year, and they had a lot of big physical cats, and the Packers got pushed around. And maybe they thought, well, we need to add some girth. Okay, that's fine. My concern is not necessarily with their change in style on the O-line. That's something that we've talked about. We talked about it with Mike Renner a couple of weeks ago. I think it's one of the most interesting parts of this offseason is the way that they've kind of changed their thinking on the O-lineman that they're signing, Banks, or drafting, Belton. I think that's interesting. I'm more focused in how they're allocating their resources. Like if you're going to extend Zach Tom, which they should, and pay Aaron Banks and pay Elton Jenkins, I don't want to pay Rasheed Walker unless you're not picking Jordan Morgan and Anthony Belton in the first and second round back-to-back years, but you did. You can't spend 2 premium picks in 2 years and then sign your left tackle, sign your right tackle, sign your left guard, and extend your center. That's just not a good use of resources. I'm sorry. I think they're all good players. I think Rasheed Walker's been an excellent player. He's probably been sneaky underrated around the league as far as left tackles go. I don't think he's perfect, but there are very few perfect players. The Packers had one, and then his knee stopped working. So I don't think, I've said this for years, I don't think it's smart to chase perfection on the O-line. I don't think it's a good idea to have an O-line that's 8 out of 10 and to continue to invest to try to get it to 10 out of 10. Sometimes 8 out of 10 is good enough. Let's not push. I don't want to reach a point of diminishing returns, and you just got to hope that your best players play their best in the biggest moments. Last year, that was not the case. It's a resources allocation point. And by the way, I said I was going to Summerfest tomorrow. Wally in Wisconsin says, I see your Summerfest and raise you a weekend of trout fishing in Wayland, Minnesota. The Root River, beautiful Fillmore County. Stick 'em, Wally. Get out there early because that bite's going to be done by 9 o'clock. If the weather in southeastern Minnesota is what it is everywhere else, that bite's going to shut off. So rise early, get on the water, Wally. We'll continue some Aaron Rodgers fun after this 2-minute update.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Brewers would hang on to beat the Chicago Cubs yesterday at Wrigley Field, 8-7. Home runs from Isaac Collins, a 3-run shot. Caleb Durbin added a 2-run drive, as well as Reese Hoskins with the solo shot drove the Brewers offense. Starting pitcher Freddie Peralta would get the win. He would go 5 innings, giving up 2 home runs while striking out 6. And Trevor McGill would work the 9th. After some questionable calls by the ump, he would get the save. Here's more from him.
Yeah, I mean, just trying to keep the emotions even. Yeah, I mean, that's baseball, I guess. I mean, they're going to have bad days back there, too, and bad innings. But, yeah, we just try to stay, mentally strong and go out there and, probably put the ball in play and get it to the ball.
The Brewers now sit 5.5 games back from the Cubs for first place in the NL Central. Crew sits 40-35 on the year. They'll go to Minnesota tonight to take on the Twins, as Jacob Mizorowski will take the mound for his second start. First pitch tonight is at 7:10.
ABC of Wisconsin is the largest apprenticeship program in the state, with more than 2,000 active apprentices in 12 different skilled trades. In the ABC apprenticeship program, you earn while you learn on the job, get paid to go to class, and graduate with a job in your craft, but without the huge college. 12 different construction trades in one spot at buildyourcareerwi.org, or just search online for ABC of Wisconsin.
Well, training camp is right around the corner for the Green Bay Packers. It will be July 23rd. They also have 13 practices that will be open to the public. The team will take July 26th off before they practice 4 of 5 days at Rayniski Field, the final week of July prior to Packers Family Night, which will be August 2nd at 7:30. July 25th will also see the last day of Mark Murphy before Ed Policy takes over, and the Packers' first preseason game is August 9th at Lambeau Field against the Jets. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
Erratic. Is there a strategy?
Was he? You said it. I did.
Do about that?
It's a waste of time for managers to address umpires on balls and strikes. It's a waste of time. I think they're all pretty conscientious. I think most of them really care about getting it right. They battled. They got out to a good lead. Swing the bat's great today. A lot of hard contacts. Great opportunity for our young guys to then face the great Cubs team breathing down our necks right to the very end. So it gets pretty emotional.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Sorry about the delay there for a sec. My laptop might not make it until 6 o'clock. It sounds like a jet engine. I'm running a live stream here, trying to pull up Aaron Rodgers' smut article. And that's not what I mean by smut. I mean just gossip articles, the New York Post, a lot of pop-ups. A lot of advertisements. Sorry, it took a sec for my intro to start there. A little delay. It's fine. It's Friday. Finn's up, by the way. Thank you for being here. Sorry I can't take your calls tonight. We're live at Bill's wonderful studios here in southeastern Wisconsin. Sponsored by Point Brewing behind me on the wall. Maybe I'll get a little Point Brewing. Get a little bit of that in my system tonight or tomorrow. Off to Summerfest for the first time in a couple of years. Billy Currington on a free stage. Yep. I'll take that. So maybe a little Point Brewing. Definitely some Leinenkugels in my future. I think with how warm it's going to be tomorrow, no problem in combining with a couple of friends to put down a case of Leinie's Light. I mean, it's basically water, and I say that in a good way. Refreshing, crisp, not too sweet or fattening or any of those things. So that's where my mind is. I can't take your calls, like I said, because I'm at Bill's. It's the original point that I was making. But I can take your texts, 608-321-1670, and your comments on the live stream as well. On YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. A follow-up thought from Bobby and Menominee on the O-line conversation that we had in the first hour. And if you're just joining us at 5 o'clock, I don't want to belabor this, but I'm just pointing out that I would like for resources to be properly allocated along the O-line. And my contention is if you're going to sign Zach Tom, which you should, you paid Aaron Banks, I have mixed feelings on. You're going to extend, I would assume, Elton Jenkins. And we have seen reporting from sources that may or may not be tight nuts, like right on it. Maybe, I don't know. But I've also seen some buzz about a possible Rasheed Walker extension. So then what was the Jordan Morgan pick for? And what was the Anthony Belton pick for? And Bobby in Menominee makes a great point here. He says, we've got 3 top 100 picks competing for right guard at the moment. Yes, it's exactly what I mean. Like, I'm never going to besmirch a general manager for investing in the O-line draft picks, but the Packers have been excellent on the O-line for a long time without needing to allocate, high-level resources with premium picks or signings, and yet now they're doing both. Now we're spending in free agency and using premium picks. And if you tie up money in Zach Tom and center and left guard and right tackle, okay, so you have 3 top 100 picks who are competing for right guard. Well, we want the best players on the field. Well, yeah, but okay. Like if you're interviewing someone for a job, you can't interview 100 people. Like there is a limit to how helpful competitiveness can be. So we talked about that a little bit in hour number 1. Jesse Temple of The Athletic going to join us coming up in about 25 minutes to talk about the news of the day. Wisconsin has filed suit against Miami in the case of Xavier Lucas. We'll get the latest on that and some other things going on in Badgerland. Jesse with Badger Connect, director of content there. And then you hear him on the camp with Zach a couple of times a week as well. So look forward to connecting with him. Be a nice way to wrap up the week in about 30 minutes or so. Little Aaron Rodgers news today, and I would love to have a little fun with this. New York Post has a story out today. Aaron Rodgers was spotted walking the beach all by himself, which it is no big deal. Like, oh, no friends, no hoes. Like, okay, that's not the point. The point is he's out walking on the beach. The New York Post has a story out about his mystery wife and how she remains out of sight. She remains very private and unseen. And we had a listener point this out last week, and I loved it. And I have half a mind to think, I'm not convinced this guy's actually married. And Packers fans, better than anyone. You got to listen to what this guy says specifically. And in that press conference with the Steelers, they asked, so that ring on your finger that you're so set on showing off in pictures, like the picture of him signing his contract with the Steelers, he's got that thing thrown out on the table. I will read you directly from the Post. This is Jacqueline Hendricks. Posted just earlier today, a couple hours ago. Newlywed Aaron Rodgers took in the Malibu sunshine solo Wednesday, less than 2 weeks after revealing he tied the knot with a mystery woman. Dressed in a white tank top and light blue shorts, the new Steelers quarterback walked along the sandy beaches by himself as his yet-to-be-identified bride stayed out of sight. Buzz surrounding Rodgers' relationship status spiked earlier this month when the former league MVP was photographed wearing a black wedding band after he agreed to a 1-year, $13 million contract to be Pittsburgh's QB1. Days later, Rodgers, coming off an unremarkable 2-year stint with the Jets, confirmed to reporters from the Steelers practice that he's married for a couple of months. Super Bowl winning quarterback 41 was dating a woman named Brittany as of December 2024. In the wake of this month's marriage bombshell, speculations swirled over the validity of Rodgers' union, with insiders recently telling the Daily Mail how the family is unconvinced the marriage is real. Rodgers may have had a symbolic commitment ceremony wedding. Some of with whom the quarterback has had frosty relations are also said to know little about Brittany. Jordan and JoJo didn't go to the wedding, and they don't even know anything about Brittany, a source previously told the Daily Mail of Rodgers' younger brother Jordan and his wife, former Bachelorette star JoJo Fletcher. What they've heard is secondhand from his parents, Ed and Darla. Rodgers' relationship with Brittany has largely been out of the spotlight compared to past romances. He was previously engaged to actress Shailene Woodley, with the couple parting ways in 2020. Before that, Rodgers dated NASCAR star Dan Patrick. Recently spoke out about her time with Rodgers, alleging their emotionally abusive relationship, quote, to nothing. Someone that people could never imagine that I would lack any confidence or belief in the simple things about who I am. Everything I was torn to bits. He leaves a trail of blood. I don't think I'm saying too much earth-shattering stuff after there's been enough out there, quote, Patrick said in May on the Sage Steele show. But it gave me the greatest gift, which is myself. It gave me the greatest gift of how much I need to show up and take care of myself. Reps for Rodgers did not immediately return to Page Six's request for comment after Patrick's remarks. Steelers report to training camp in late July. Rodgers, who missed most of the Jets' 2023 season due to an Achilles injury, tossed 28 touchdowns and 8 interceptions last year. You may be listening and wondering, Grant, why are we talking about this? Why do you care? I still find Rodgers to be a fascinating character. And look, if Rodgers didn't want anyone talking about his marriage, he didn't exactly have to turn his contract signing into a photo op with his finger. We all noticed that, right? Like, he had that thing. Like, when people take engagement photos, like the man might put their arm around the woman and you can very clearly see the ring, or the woman might hold it out. Look at my glam. Rodgers basically did that in the picture in which he signed his contract, to the point where Steelers reporters basically had to ask him, bro, is that a wedding ring? I think the question was, is that a wedding ring or is that an aura ring? What's going on there? And he said, it's a wedding ring. And they asked, oh, how long is that? And he said a couple of months. That was basically all he said. He never said, I got married. He confirmed that it's a wedding ring and that he has been ostensibly wearing it a couple of months. Packers fans, I tell you, we spotted this, and a lot of you spotted this right from the jump. I think, I don't remember who tweeted at me last week when we talked about this, because his press conference was on the 11th. What would that be, last Tuesday or Wednesday? And said, hey, he said it was a wedding ring. He never said he was actually married. There's a story out of the Journal Sentinel today, and it's not JR, it's Christopher Cahagan. It says Aaron Rodgers' brother, Jordan Rodgers, didn't go to the Steelers quarterback wedding, getting news about marriage through internet. Report says. Let me see if there are any quotes in here. The Journal Sentinel has not independently confirmed details of Rodgers' wedding or any of its guests. Aaron Rodgers didn't go to Jordan's wedding in 2022 after the former Green Bay Packers quarterback had cut ties with his parents and brothers for years. And this is again from the Daily Mail. Secondhand, they hear that she's willing to stay private and that she's not with him for fame or money, but they know nothing about her. Well, just because she's staying private doesn't mean she's not in it for money. She's not in it for fame. It's independent of the cash. But they know nothing about her. This is not a close family unit at all. Right now, JoJo and Jordan are getting the news about the marriage from the internet. Interesting. I am fascinated by this story. No, he does not play for the Packers anymore. And it's not our problem. It's not our circus. It's not our monkeys. But technically, I don't own any circuses. But I have attended circuses because they're entertaining to watch. Like, no one goes to a circus. It's like, it's not my circus. Those aren't my monkeys. Let's leave. Like, no, I actually don't want to own the monkeys. Ideally, someone else owns the circus and the monkeys, and I just get to enjoy the circus and the monkeys. That's what we're doing here. And look, if Rodgers isn't truly married, I don't care if they had some sort of soul-binding unity ceremony instead of a legally binding wedding. Good for them. The Daily Mail reported earlier this week that there's no registration of marriage or marriage license in a few of the states that would have made sense. I don't know if they looked through all 50. I don't know how you get that information. It's not exactly like Patriot Act or Freedom of Information Act. Like, it's, you know what I mean? You don't necessarily need that. I just think it's interesting. And I think it's par for the course with some of the experiences that we've had recently with Rodgers, right? I'm not the only one who finds this shockingly similar to what happened a couple of years ago. Again, you don't want to get the vaccine, fine, don't get the vaccine. You don't want to have a traditional wedding, don't have a traditional wedding. But then when you publicly use words in a way that leads people to think one thing or another, it's just interesting. And I like interesting. Screw me, sue me, I think is what that's what I meant to say. Maybe screw me too, whatever. Oh my God. I tweeted today, as many Packers fans have been saying since last week, he never said he was married. He only confirmed he was wearing a wedding ring. It's just fascinating. I'm interested to see how this plays out. I have fun with the Rodgers stories now. Let's see any texts. It's 608-321-1670. I'll read them as they come in. Let's see here. I'm scrolling up. I just want to make sure I got them all. This one says, Jake from Eau Claire, Liney's light. Got to get yourself some canoe paddler or shandy for the summer. Summer shandy is delicious, but it's thick. It's a potion, man. It's going to be 100 degrees tomorrow. I can't be like, I might have one, but I'm a light beer man. I don't like feeling fat. If I want to eat, I'm going to eat food. I don't want to drink my calories. Duck and Holman says Rodgers probably named his right hand Brittany. Well, there's no evidence to the contrary, at least none that's been reported. Jared and DeForest says Aaron Rodgers is 100% married to himself or the universe, and that's probably a legal contract marriage from a courthouse or a chapel in Vegas. Better yet, a contract with a shaman hut in Peru. Maybe. Again, Rodgers doesn't have to be married, and he certainly doesn't need to do it in any traditional way, and he certainly doesn't need to do it for anyone else. The thing is he kind of threw it in our face to the point where Steelers fans had to ask. So that's why we're following along. Anonymous Pete says, do we think Wisconsin has for sure not engaged in inappropriate recruiting behavior? We've had a number of commits flip to Wisconsin after being committed to other teams. Why do Wisconsin fans feel like they're on the moral high ground here? Questions related to Jesse's interview. Well, so you're hinting at two different things, Pete. Flipping a recruit after they've committed is not illegal. That's been going on for a long time. Going all the way back to Tyler Hero before NIL or pay for player, before any of this was going on. Organizations and athletic departments and administrations flip recruits all the time. That's different than landing a transfer who's technically under contract. So there's a difference there. Now, moral high ground. I tell you what, I don't really care about the moral high ground. Miami offered him a bucket of money. Wisconsin's offering players buckets of money. The whole thing is a sleazy mess. So I'm not on a moral high ground here. I just think Wisconsin fans, now that there is a lawsuit, they want to win. They want to feel like my team is in the right. And I don't know how this is going to go. I feel like that's probably where this is trending, because now that revenue sharing is taking place and pay for play is basically legal, I guess, if you're under contract with a team to play for the upcoming year, you can't dip. And I think at its most basic level, that's what's going on here. County Mike says, Grant Murphy was simply classic after that almost stolen win versus the Cubs. So why can't you take phone calls when you're not in Bill's studio? Because the phone isn't here in Bill's studio. It's back in the studio in Madison. And I can't pick it up from here. We would need someone back in studio. And Austin, he's got better things to do. I'm not going to make him sit around and pick up the phone calls. Maybe one day we'll figure out a way to do it, but some Fridays in the summer. And it makes me work harder, Coyote Mike. This makes me sing for my supper just a little bit more. Thank you for the texts. We'll get to more on the other side. Comments on the live stream as well. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at Wisco Grant. Jesse Temple about 15 minutes away. And we'll talk about this latest development in Wisconsin v. Miami filing suit against the organization or the team for poaching Xavier Lucas while he was under contract with the school. That's key in this. It's not flipping a recruit who had committed. It was a player who was under contract. So again, to circle back and to answer Anonymous Pete's question, that's what's on the line here. However you want to feel about it morally, I don't care. That's for you to fully decide. More text, 608-321-1670 on the other side. Final thoughts, and then we'll get to Jesse Temple at 5:35.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. Jesse Temple coming about in 10 minutes. Badger Connect. We'll talk about the latest Badgers news. They're filing suit against Miami. And I'll give you some of the details, the latest reporting from Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports. So I'll give you that here in a minute. I was just watching the highlights because Sports Center's on the TV here in front of me, broadcasting in Bill's studio. Mariners and Cubs. I was watching some of the highlights. And I wasn't paying attention to the game. And I saw our friend Sam Olbert tweet that, Ryan Presley was probably due for that one. And I thought that, Ryan Presley, he's been a closer. Is that game in the 9th inning already? And I turned it on, and Ryan Presley was pitching in the 6th. And then the Mariners just hitting a couple extra home runs. Cal Raleigh had 2 of them today. That's just a really fun series. The Cubs are fun. I hate it, but I don't really have any gripes with anybody on the team other than Craig Counsell, who again can just absolutely stick it up his rear end. Dave from Monona, I was hoping he'd chime in on this. Who cares about Miami? Can Wisconsin make the players suffer? Suspend him. Lose all eligibility. No longer play football. Bye-bye. He's to blame because he's an adult. Forget the schools. Screw the employer. Make him forfeit the rest of his college career. And Dave, if you're not aware, is completely and totally blind. And that is voice to text. And that always makes his texts and tweets funnier to me because I can just picture him yelling into his phone. Who cares about Miami? There's no punctuation. I'm going to read this exactly how it's texted. You ready? Who cares about Miami? Can Wisconsin make the players suffer, suspend him, lose all eligibility, no longer play football? Bye-bye. He's to blame because he's an adult. Forget the school. Screw the employer. Make him forfeit the rest of his college career, which is very contradictory to what Jay Krebs tweeted in over the break. Says, I think the Badgers are being petty. None of this is fair. The kid left, so be it. The rules suck right now. And I think there's some truth to that, too. They're not going to get him back. That's not the goal here. And you'll hear Jesse kind of explain that this is just a means towards an end or to working towards an end. Wisconsin is, I think, throwing themselves at this and the Big Ten throwing themselves behind Wisconsin to further the progress of college football, right? If players are going to take money and that money is money that comes from revenue sharing, there needs to be some guardrails and some rules on how this is done, which I don't think it's ever going to be perfect. I think it's never going to be perfect. I don't think it's ever going to be close. College football's never been perfect. So now that you've thrown a bunch of money into it, it's supposed to get better. We're supposed to be able to fix it. I don't buy into that at all. But if a player is going to sign on to play with you for a year and take money, he should have to stay for that year. And then if you want to revisit after the year, I think the issue with Wisconsin, and Ross Dellinger reported on this today, I'll read you a little bit of it from Yahoo Sports, is that he was under contract in air quotes, because what does that even mean in today's college football world? The case is poised to set precedent in the ability for schools to enforce tampering clauses within revenue sharing agreements that were contingent on the House settlement's passage. The settlement, the mechanism introducing athlete revenue sharing, was approved on June 6th. Over the last several months, dozens of schools have signed players to revenue share deals contingent on the settlement's approval, which, hold on, how insane is that? schools have been operating and handing out contracts and money based on the idea that this thing will happen, even though we're not sure. Imagine if it wouldn't have passed. What a nightmare. I'm continuing. Universities are intending these rev share contracts to be binding documents that eliminate tampering and slow transfer movement. I don't know that you'll ever be able to eliminate tampering. If Miami wants to call on Xavier Lucas, fine. I don't want to police that mess. They can call all they want, but the answer from Wisconsin's end or a player like Xavier Lucas has to be, hey, call me in the offseason when my contract is done. Right? Slowing transfer movement. I don't think it's going to change it or stop it unless players are signed to deals through revenue sharing their multiple seasons. Then I suppose it could. I don't know why players would do that. The suit strikes at the heart of one of the festering issues within the industry. Schools tampering and ultimately poaching athletes from other programs. While against NCAA rules, the enforcement of tampering has drawn little to no action from the NCAA investigators who were hamstrung by court orders. What are they supposed to do? Are we supposed to comb phone records and listen in? It's not the Patriot Act. It's the Big Ten. So here's what my goal would be, and I'm an idiot. I'm far from a lawyer and I'm far from an expert on this. Don't try to ban tampering. Create a system where tampering won't matter. Miami can call on a player all they want. Ohio State can call on a player all they want. Communicate until the cows come home, but nothing can come of that communication until the player's contract is up. That's much easier to enforce. We're not combing phone records and email transcriptions. We're just making sure the player stands through the rest of their contract. That's a lot easier to enforce. That makes more sense to me. But then again, what do I know? I'm sure it's much more complicated than that. Ross Dellinger continues. However, inside this new world of college sports, contracts stand to prevent such behavior by including specific causes. Torturous interference describes the act of interfering with a person or entity that signed a binding agreement. Wisconsin and Lucas struck a 2-year revenue sharing agreement. That's what this is all about. Like all of them, it was set to begin July 1st, the first date that schools can begin directly compensating athletes. Because of that agreement, Wisconsin refused to enter Lucas's name into the portal after he requested transfer. And then Xavier Lucas, I think in a stroke of brilliance or a stroke of stupidity, something that was so smart it was stupid, forget transferring. I'm just going to enroll at Miami. What are you going to do? You going to detain me? Like, this is just such a mess. And a lot of people saw it coming. And this is largely the fault of the NCAA because they just held out on paying players as long as possible and then said, all right, fine, screw it. Good luck. And of course it's been a mess because college football has always been a mess. Now there's just money involved and you can transfer whenever you want. So obviously it's a mess. You could have seen this coming a million miles away. I think this story is going to go a long way in shaping how player movement and how contracts, specifically with revenue sharing, that seems to be a big hang up. It's not just NIL money, it's revenue sharing money, which makes sense because if a booster donates money, use that money however the booster wants, use it however the school wants. If the money is coming from some larger schematic place, revenue sharing, I'm sure that money is dictated differently and tagged differently, which makes sense, right? It would be the same as if tax dollars are allocated to something versus a donation versus like there's different guidelines and ways that monies can be moved around and used. And I'm sure this isn't that different from other walks of life. It's a big legal mess, which seemed avoidable, or at least it could have been cleaner, less messy than this. And I remember Joel Klatt talking about it for years. It's like, had they prepared for this and accepted this reality that players are eventually going to be able to make money, they could have drawn this up ahead of time, created a framework ahead of time. And they didn't, which is why we've ended up in this spot, right? And we're going to talk about that with Jesse in a couple of minutes. Q comments. I just watched the Favre documentary this week. So it's like Grant's in a celebrity's house. Yeah, this is where Bill was. And the Point Brewing sign getting run through it all. What a coup for Point Brewing. Stevens Point, Wisconsin, going big time on Netflix on a documentary about Brett Favre. Pretty great. So let's take a break now. We'll leave ourselves a little bit of extra time at the end of the show. Jesse Temple going to join us next, Badger Connect. And we'll pick his brain on this, but we've also talked about this Xavier Lucas situation before. So it's not like any of this is completely and totally earth-shattering, but we'll get the latest details and make sure everyone's up to speed. And then talk about some of the other things that Jesse's been covering and reporting on at Badger Connect. Some real good content there. So all of that coming up next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Big River Rally coming to La Crosse, Wisconsin, June 27th and 28th. Don't miss the excitement on the main stage Friday night. It's Texas Hippie Coalition. And Saturday night Drowning Pool. Tickets are on sale now. Want more? Follow Big River Rally on social or go to BigRiverRally.com.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. Fins up, by the way. It's Friday. Happy to have you here. Uncle Packer texts in. Grant, I love the Aaron Rodgers news. I think of him like a strange uncle. You can't get blamed for the stuff he does, but he's still family. You know my point of view on Aaron Rodgers. I'm not sure that I do, but Uncle Packer, I know you to be very reasonable. And look, another thing is sports radio is supposed to be fun. And you know what's fun? We're not sure if he's married or not. That's interesting to me. We can dedicate 10 minutes to that on a Friday afternoon show, especially if the Post and the Daily Mail and these prestigious journalistic outlets are going to report on it. I say that with a touch of humor, but also it's the New York Post. It's not who does Dale write for? Our WEAC reporter again, the Nakusa Register. Now, if the Nakusa Register wrote a story, I'd probably have to have Dale on the show. We'll get him back as we get a little closer to WEAC football season. As we get closer to Badger football season, Jesse Temple, Badger Connect, we know that he stops by once a week to chat with us about this, that, and the other thing. And the good timing this week is he had a dental thing on Wednesday and his cheeks wound numb and he couldn't talk. So we moved back his appearance to today, which was good because today we learned that Wisconsin is filing suit against Miami officially now that the House settlement went through a couple of weeks ago. So Jesse's going to give us the latest on that. And I think this interview should play and sound okay on the live stream. I'm going to start it and then check a couple of things just to make sure. But Jesse Temple, Badger Connect from earlier today.
Jesse Temple is here a little bit later on in the week, but the vibes are higher on a Friday than on a Wednesday. So I kind of like this. He's with Badger Connect. So you should follow his work there.
Maybe we got to take this break early and I'll figure out a way to do it. That's a bummer. I'll get this downloaded and then we'll get Jesse on. I don't know why that wouldn't be working, but I'll get after it. That's a little bit anticlimactic, so I'm sorry about that. Again, the details on the lawsuit, and we'll just move Jesse to the final segment of the show. Filing suit earlier today, and I thought that this had already happened. And I think maybe the House settlement going through was the final straw that needed to fall. Maybe, just maybe, that was ultimately the thing that made the domino, or that was the final thing that needed to go. Let me try this one more time.
Jesse Temple is here a little bit later on in the week, but the vibes are higher.
That's a bummer. And because we're not in the studio and because I don't have the audio readily available, I'm going to have to do this on the fly, which I'm more than capable of. We could just talk about Aaron Rodgers' wife. We are not going to do that. While I'm more than comfortable dedicating 10 minutes to that, I'm not going to dedicate any more to that. So we'll get Jesse in the final segment of the show and a couple minutes here before we break to get your final thoughts. 608-321-1670 and on the live stream as well, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Vagabond John saying, sounded great on the live stream. Yeah, it will. I know it's coming through on the live stream. I need it to go out on the radio because if it's not going out on the radio and my boss calls, I'm not going to be able to say, well, you know, it was fine on the live stream. Forget the thousands of people listening on the physical radio around the state of Wisconsin. We have, radio stations that need to be accommodated. So always the radio first. So Vagabond John, I should be able to get it in the final segment. Maybe we'll break here just a little bit early. And my apologies about that. We should be able to get it. And if not, I'll post it individually and you guys can watch that Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, the same place that you get the live stream. Every single night. So let's do that. Let me tinker with this for a couple of minutes. We'll come back. And I think I'll be able to play this in a way that works for everybody and doesn't leave our radio signals silent for the final 20 minutes of the hour. So we'll come right back and I think we'll be able to make this work.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show in 30 seconds.
Not only going out to Wisconsin and the great Midwest, we're going around the world tonight, Parrot Heads.
Yes, load! Fins up. It's Friday. And as I'm broadcasting live here at Bill's, we had a little bit of a technical snafu being remote. And I got Jesse's interview. We'll wrap up the show with that. I was able to figure it out. But I'm having a hard time focusing because I look out the windows here at Bill's studio and he's out there mowing the lawn. And Bill has a very large riding mower that goes very fast. So I'll just look up and I'll just see a green blur go by. So, you know what? I believe I can actually throw the camera to the live stream out on the Tiki Bar, and maybe we'll be able to catch a glimpse of him. Maybe whipping past in his riding lawnmower. But in the meantime, let's focus on the main thing here, getting Jesse's interview played, because there's breaking Badger news today. And we can talk about the Xavier Lucas lawsuit, which is now guns a-blazing. The Big Ten has the full faith and backing thrown behind Wisconsin in this thing, and that's not totally surprising. Here's my conversation with Jesse earlier today.
Jesse Temple is here a little bit later on in the week, but the vibes are higher on a Friday than on a Wednesday. So I kind of like this. He's with Badger Connect, so you should follow his work there. And not just the articles, but some great video work as well, which I want to talk about. But the breaking news today, Jesse, and Ross Dellinger with Yahoo had it. Wisconsin is pursuing legal action against Miami. My first question, I thought this happened already. Like, I thought we knew this was happening already. So why is this a breaking news story again today? Just fill us in on the timing and if anything has changed, what?
Well, we knew that this was something that was a possibility, but it's finally, the suit has finally been filed. And really, this is what we knew was coming, because it's about tampering, and that the suit says Miami obviously knowingly went after a student athlete who's not named, and Wisconsin is not going after Xavier Lucas. This is more about Miami, but that he was fully committed with Wisconsin and then went home and was no longer in the boat for the Badgers. And now obviously he's at Miami. He bypassed the transfer portal window. So there's a lot going on here. But the reason this is important is this is really a landmark case in college athletics where you finally have a school pursuing legal action against another school for tampering, which, let's be honest, Grant, this is something that happens everywhere. I can tell you I've heard numerous stories over the years, especially in this transfer portal era, of Badgers who weren't in the transfer portal and weren't even really considering it, and some who maybe were, who were talking to coaches who were throwing out offers for money. Well, that's not allowed. So this is really an opportunity for school to hold another school accountable, and we'll see what ultimately happens. But Wisconsin also has the full support of the Big Ten. So this is obviously a case where Wisconsin is sort of carrying the flag for a lot of other institutions. But yeah, this is a big deal as college athletics go.
Dellinger wrote at Yahoo earlier today, the case is poised to set precedent in the ability for schools to enforce tampering clauses, which we knew. This is the part that, if you could help us out with it all, within revenue sharing agreements that were contingent on the House settlement's passage, which finally passed on June 6th. So what, if anything, changed with the passing of that settlement that we need to know about now?
Well, I know that players at the time signed agreements that were memorandums of understanding, and it was with the assumption that revenue sharing was going to go into effect, which for a little while this spring and summer felt like it was in limbo, but everybody was anticipating it was going to start in July. So again, you had people sign an agreement that at the time, I suppose, didn't exist, but was going to exist. And so obviously there are a lot of schools out there that have tried to do something similar. And I'll certainly be curious to see how this all shakes out, because whatever is decided will set a precedent for future cases like this.
What's the goal? What does Wisconsin hope to get out of this, and other teams that might be championing Wisconsin, or the Big Ten that's supporting Wisconsin? What's the end goal? What is hoped to be accomplished by this?
Well, the end goal has nothing to do with trying to get a particular player back. That horse has left the barn. Xavier Lucas is at Miami. He's going to play this season. It's more about establishing a foundation for the future of college athletics and some reform to what has really been the wild, wild west. And again, this is something that has gone on for a long, long time, but now you throw in the type of money that is involved, and it's even easier than ever for a school to say, hey, what kind of deal are you getting? Well, guess what? We can offer you more money. And so this hopes to curb some of that stuff that's going on in college athletics that people aren't thrilled about.
Jesse Temple, Badger Connect, is here, and you can hear him on the camp with Zach as well. So I know they're going to have some good takes on that. So wherever you subscribe and listen to their podcast, definitely keep your eyes and ears out for the next week or so. You have a story up at Badger Connect about Tretch Kekahuna. He was one of those guys, you weren't quite sure if he was going to return to Wisconsin. I think in your story, you might have used the word like in limbo. You weren't quite sure. And he decides to come back. Can you tell us a little bit about that and maybe part of the pitch that Wisconsin made to get him to return?
This is absolutely one of the more wild, I think, transfer portal stories for a guy who came back. I was talking to Tretch earlier in the week, and obviously we knew he announced his return to Wisconsin after entering the transfer portal with an Instagram post that said, I'm back. Well, he went into the portal on December 4th, and I talked to him during that little window about what was going on. And it wasn't at the time money driven, though obviously if you come back, you're going to be of higher priority, I suppose. It was about his role or lack thereof last season, and he did not like in Phil Longo's offense. You had two slot receivers that, as Kenny Guyton, the wide receivers coach last season, said, ate off the same plate with Tretch Kekahuna and Will Pauling. And Kekahuna sort of got the short end of the stick, didn't get a lot of targets, and wanted to go somewhere where he was going to be a bigger priority. This is what he told me that I thought was so fascinating and insane. So he had an apartment downtown. He cleared out all of his belongings, had him shipped back to Hawaii, where he's from, to his mom and his sister. He got rid of his car. He was in a shuttle van on the way to the airport. He was literally at the speed bump, he told me, when he's about to pull up to the airport and go to TSA pre-check. Mm-hmm. And Luke Fickell texts him. Kenny Guyton calls him, and Kenny Guyton says, hey, Can you come in? And Tretch is like, I'm at the airport. And Tretch relayed this story to me. He said, Kenny Guyton asked him, well, when are you coming back? And what he didn't realize was Tretch was on his way to take 4 visits to schools. It was Michigan. This is what Tretch said: Michigan, Tennessee, UCLA, and NC State. And then he was going to go back to Hawaii, make a decision, and have the stuff that was sent back to Hawaii shipped out to his new school. And so, honestly, if a couple more hours had passed, I don't think Tretch is at Wisconsin right now. But because he had such a really good relationship with Guyton, he said, okay, I got you. He told the shuttle driver to turn around, take him back home. They asked for 30 minutes of his time, and he spent about 3 hours there. And this was at a time when they had just hired the new offensive coordinator in Jeff Grimes. So that's kind of how this process played out. They were still in contact with him during that week when he was in the portal. But for him to hear the vision that Jeff Grimes had, and Grimes was extremely complimentary of Kekahuna's game, obviously was enough to sell him on coming back. And now he's your number 1 slot receiver, assuming he can stay healthy, because he did suffer a Jones fracture and missed spring practice, but we saw some of that explosiveness last year.
Hearing stories like this about Kenny Guyton, who was the wide receivers coach turned quarterbacks coach, and now is under Jeff Grimes after a couple seasons there with Phil Longo. Can you maybe tell us how he's better suited or better positioned to pair with Grimes and to contribute to this offense, maybe in a way that he wasn't in the past, or is he going to get an opportunity to do some things that maybe fit his strengths a little bit better in this offense, do you think?
Kenny Guyton specifically?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I think he was a great fit last year because of his infectious personality and positivity. It doesn't work if it's fake, but that's legitimately who he is. But this is an opportunity he's been seeking for a decade plus. He played quarterback at Ohio State, and this is the first time he has a chance to coach quarterbacks. The reason he didn't go there in the first place is that wasn't an opportunity right away. You got to get your foot in the door where you can, and it ended up leading him down the path of coaching wide receivers. But I think this will allow him to be involved in the offense more. And certainly when you're handling the quarterbacks and not the wide receivers, you are directly involved in what's happening. And he really showed the last 2 games of the regular season a year ago after Phil Longo was fired, some of that responsibility that he could take on, because he was helping to signal plays in from the sideline. He worked not only with the wide receivers, but also the quarterbacks. So it ended up being a bit of an audition. But even the addition of the new wide receivers coach in Jordan Reed from Western Michigan, I think is a positive here. And this is another part of the Tretch story. Is Tretch, when he learned that Kenny Guyton was switching positions, initially Tretch was like, so I'm just going to have to enter the transfer portal again? Like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And when they told him it was going to be Jordan Reed, it turns out Reed was the first coach to call Tretch and offer him a scholarship after Tretch entered the transfer portal, and they kind of hit it off. It's just Tretch didn't want to go to Western Michigan. He wanted to go to a Power 4 school. So Tretch said it's kind of a small world. So now he gets to play for a coach who he'd already talked to during the portal window.
I'm learning that some of these decisions on when to transfer or where to go or where to play, some of it is just luck. Like, I happen to get a phone call at this moment in my life, or I happen to reconnect with this person at this place. It's very interesting how that works. So lastly, you have a story up. You talked with Mike Hastings, Badgers hockey coach, about his history of winning. And then you have a Badger Bites up where you're on the golf course with Quinn Finley. What is it like getting a chance to do some hockey stuff now with Badger Connect? Is that something that you've enjoyed? Like, tell us about that part of the Badger athletics world. Because I know a lot of Badgers fans are really into it. And then there are some, football and basketball. And, I like to see the hockey team win, but maybe not something that folks are super focused on.
I'd say in my previous stop, 95% of my coverage was football, and that's great because it's what people care about the most, and it drives the revenue bus for everyone involved. But it's been nice to be able to cover some of these other sports, basketball, hockey, volleyball, which I'll have more volleyball stuff coming soon, because people here are passionate about it, and they do care about it. And again, at Badger Connect, that's part of the selling point here is you get great content, but you can also choose a tier where you can have your membership dollars go to support these specific sports. So, Wisconsin hockey has a great tradition, and Mike Hastings was pretty honest about what happened last year. It's funny because he had 26 consecutive winning seasons as a men's hockey coach, but I asked him if he ever thought about it, and he said, well, I just wanted to get to 27, and obviously the Badgers were disappointing a year ago, but they've got what feels like a squad coming back this year, including Quinn Finley, who's the team's leading returning scorer. And I do love doing these Badger Bites videos because it's a chance to get to know some of these athletes in a way that we wouldn't otherwise see them. And there are a lot of fun ones coming, including this week, which I can give it away. I guess this coming week will be a one-on-one I had with running back Dylan Jones and some other fun stuff on the horizon.
Is it cool to do one-on-ones in a space outside of a little office or media, like to return serves for Mimi Collier, to get on the golf course with JP Finley? Do you find that, not JP Finley, but do you find that it's a little bit different? Like you can relax a little bit and players are a little bit more willing to chat and to let you in a bit more, maybe?
I hope so. I mean, that was the goal of this, is let's just get these guys and the men and women of these programs comfortable in an environment they're used to being in. And then maybe everyone realizes how good they are, or maybe how bad I am, but it's just fun. And it's a different way into trying to cover these teams and provide content that doesn't exist right now in our market. So hopefully people will sign up for Badger Connect, because we have a lot more good stuff on the horizon.
Quinn Finley, not JP Finley. JP Finley is another radio guy. So I've really enjoyed a touch of hockey, a touch of volleyball. It's been fun to follow your work at Badger Connect. I suggest everybody do the same. Jesse, I appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. Talk soon.
Jesse Temple, I'm glad that I was able to get that work. That would have been a bummer. A text from Anonymous Pete says, if Wisconsin wins, we'll see hundreds of cases across college football. So I don't know then what comes next. Again, I am not a lawyer. I know this is news to you. I feel like this might be more of a matter of, if Wisconsin wins, moving forward, this is the precedent. I don't know that then schools can go back and get reparations. Like I don't think you can go back and relitigate things that happened in a previous. You know what I mean? Like if you change a law, you then can't go back and prosecute someone for breaking the law before the law was what it is now. So I'm not sure. I'm very dumb, and I'm not going to be in charge of anything this complicated, just because I don't know enough about this world, and I'm far from a lawyer. But it would seem to me tampering is a very difficult thing to enforce, because if you enforce it, it seems like you're picking on somebody, because you could probably get everybody on tampering. So why not try to enforce something more enforceable? And I think that's what they're going at here. The story from Ross Dellinger, Yahoo again. The suit strikes at the heart of one of the festering issues within the industry: schools tampering and ultimately poaching athletes from other programs. Well, against NCAA rules, the enforcement has been difficult, blah, 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 blah. However, inside this new world of college sports, contracts stand to prevent such behavior by including specific clauses. Tortious interference describes the act of interfering with a person or an entity that signed a binding contract. Here's how I feel about it. Call all you want. If Xavier Lucas is on the roster and you are interested in him, knock yourself out and pick up the phone. You can tell him whatever you want. You can ask him whatever you want. But while he remains under the contract that he signed with Wisconsin, nothing will be able to come from it. And that, to me, feels like a much easier way to go. Then you're not policing phone records and email chains and texts and all this crap that really only stands to waste everybody's time. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you're trying to prevent tampering, you've already lost. And I think that's been clear in college sports. I think that's true in the NBA too. There's tampering that takes place all the time. And yet most of the leagues or the NCAA itself seeks to really only go after certain teams. Like when the Bucks were stung in the offseason of, what would that have been, 2020, when they got or almost got Bojan Bogdanovic, or Bogdan. It was Bogdan and Drew Holiday. Now they ended up getting Drew Holiday, but they didn't end up getting Bogdan. And then the NBA stuck them with a tampering case. Able to enforce, and when you try to enforce it, everybody else is okay. Well, if you're punishing us, then what about them and them and them and them? And I think, why bother with it? Try to create an environment where tampering is not going to matter. It's so much easier and clean. And God knows the NCAA can't do anything right anyway. So don't put this on them. Put this on the schools and the players involved. I think that's a much easier way to go. And I think that makes a lot more sense. So we can pick this up next Monday. Maybe we can talk with Zach, although I personally think Zach is sick of talking about the Xavier Lucas thing. But it seems like this is just getting started. So we'll get back to this after the weekend. Enjoy it. Stands to be beautiful. 90 is warm, but at least it's not 60 and rainy and windy. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you Monday.